You've got your bug-out bag, your freeze-dried meals, and maybe even a solar generator. But in a real grid-down disaster, that's not going to cut it. Because when the lights go out, for real, it's not the flashy gear that saves you. It's the forgotten tools, the overlooked items, the quiet workhorses no prepper ever talks about until they desperately need them. Most prepper lists are carbon copies. Water, food, flashlight, batteries, done. And yeah, those are essential. But ask anyone who's lived through a long blackout, a flood, or a martial law lockdown, and they'll tell you. It's the small, unexpected items that separate the merely prepared from the truly resilient. So in this video, we're going to cover 15 must-have survival items preppers never think of, ranked from the least essential to the absolute game changers. And trust me, if you're missing even one of the top 5, you might be prepping with a blind spot that could cost you everything. Let's start with something so basic it's almost always ignored until your body reminds you the hard way. Number 15. Cookbooks from the 1940s-60s. If you think a cookbook is dead weight in a crisis, you've clearly never had to cook without Google, or power, or refrigeration. Cookbooks from the 1940s to the 60s weren't written for gourmet kitchens. They were built around rationing, scrap usage, and cooking with what little you had. They teach you how to make nourishing meals from ingredients that don't require refrigeration, how to cook over a fire or stovetop without electricity, and how to stretch a single can of beans into something that feeds a family. More than that, they help keep routine and normalcy alive when the world goes sideways, because nothing grounds people like a warm, simple meal you actually recognize. Now, you could argue that in a short blackout, you'll just eat your canned chili and call it a day. Sure, but what about day 7, day 30? When the frozen stuff is gone and the fancy freeze-dried packs are dwindling, do you know how to bake bread without yeast? Turn powdered milk into something that doesn't taste like regret? That's what these old cookbooks are for. They were made by and for people who had to get creative every day. People who didn't have a microwave, Instacart, or a fridge the size of a coffin. Number 14. Compact air pump. You probably didn't think of this one, but imagine your blackout stretches beyond a week. You've got your air mattress, the only comfortable spot left after your couch became a food staging area, and you're slowly deflating onto a cold, hard floor. Or maybe you've rigged a rain catchment barrel or converted a bike tire for movement or pressure-based systems. All of it collapses without air unless you have a manual air pump. This tiny hand-powered tool is the unsung hero of self-reliance. It lets you inflate not just mattresses, but makeshift flotation devices, solar showers, or insulation bladders if you're sealing windows. Got kids? They'll need somewhere warm and soft to sleep too, especially when the mood is already tense. And nothing tanks morale faster than 72 hours on cold tile. Your fancy camp mattress isn't worth much when it's flat and useless. Electric pumps won't help you when the grid's down unless you've dedicated power just for it. And even if you got solar, why waste precious battery cycles on something you could do by hand in 5 minutes? A manual air pump is cheap, durable, and silent. Which also matters when you don't want the whole building knowing you've got resources worth stealing. Most people think of air pumps as luxury items for beach days or inflating pool toys. But in an off-grid survival scenario, they're a mechanical solution to a whole category of problems. Shelter, comfort, mobility, utility. You can even rig one to help with forced air circulation if you need ventilation through tubing or ducting. It's the kind of thing you don't miss until it's gone. And once it is, you're either sleeping on the floor or wasting breath you can't afford. Number 13, spare insoles and shoelaces. In a survival situation, the single most underrated body part is your feet. Everyone talks about power, water, food, but if your feet go out, so do you. Think about it. If the elevators are dead, you're climbing stairs. If the building catches fire, you're on the run. If your bug-out plan ever kicks in, you're walking, hauling, standing, navigating debris. And if every step feels like punishment, you're not surviving, you're breaking down. That's where spare insoles and shoelaces come in. It's not glamorous, it's not tactical, but it's the kind of prep that actually keeps you moving when the rest of your body is already screaming. Most shoes, especially the ones we wear every day, are built for aesthetics, not endurance. Walk 10 miles in your office boots and you'll understand. Insoles give your joints a fighting chance. They reduce fatigue, prevent blisters, and protect your knees and hips from long-term wear. And if your shoes get soaked, torched, or worn down, being able to swap in a dry, padded insole is the closest thing to foot rehab you're going to get during a blackout. Now let's talk shoelaces. They're just string, right? Until they snap mid-evacuation. Then suddenly, your foot's slipping out of your boot, your stride's off, your balance is trash, and you're risking a rolled ankle or worse. Preppers love paracord, but don't forget that shoelaces themselves can be tactical tools used to tie off gear, strap down supplies, or even repair equipment. But more importantly, they keep your shoes functional, and that keeps you mobile. Number 12, borax. Borax doesn't usually make it onto survival lists, and that's a shame, because in a world without Lysol wipes, Raid spray, or access to running water, this humble white powder can quietly become one of your most powerful allies. It's cheap, it's shelf-stable, and it can disinfect, deodorize, kill bugs, and help you keep your shelter clean, all without fancy packaging or expiration dates. Let's break it down. First, disinfection. Borax, when mixed with warm water, becomes a powerful cleaning agent that can wipe down counters, gear, containers, even toilet seats, without choking you with toxic fumes. If bleach runs out, borax can help pick up the slack. It won't kill viruses like bleach does, but it will knock down bacteria, mold, and grime with ease. Next, pest control. One of the dirtiest secrets of long-term blackouts is that once the power's gone and the garbage builds up, pests move in. Fast. Roaches, ants, even mice, they love the dark, the warmth, and the leftovers you forgot to lock down. A sprinkle of borax along doorways or inside cupboards mixed with a little sugar becomes a roach death trap. And it won't poison your air or make you dizzy like commercial sprays. But there's more. Borax helps prevent mold, a huge issue when humidity rises and ventilation tanks. It can also be used in small amounts for laundry if you're hand-washing clothes or cloth diapers during an extended crisis. Some even use it to treat athletes' foot and mildew in shoes, and while it's not a miracle cure, it beats doing nothing. Number 11, cling wrap. Cling wrap, the kind you find in your kitchen drawer, might be one of the most overlooked multi-use survival tools in your entire apartment. It's light, it's cheap, it's compact, and when used right, it can fill half a dozen critical roles in a crisis. This isn't just about wrapping sandwiches anymore. In an off-grid emergency, plastic wrap turns into medical gear, waterproofing, insulation, and even pest control. Let's start with wounds. If you've got an open injury but no sterile dressing, cling wrap can act as a temporary barrier against dirt and bacteria. Hospitals sometimes use it in emergencies to seal burns until proper care is available. You can layer it over gauze to keep a bandage dry or wrap a limb after applying ointment to keep it clean. It's not a substitute for sterile dressings, but it's a hell of a lot better than nothing. Waterproofing? Absolutely. Wrap it around flashlights, electronics, matches, or even your feet if you're trying to keep them dry inside compromised shoes. It's flexible, stretches to shape, and sticks to itself. That means you can quickly secure it around any odd surface to keep water out or warmth in. Speaking of warmth, you can wrap it over a fabric layer to trap body heat, sort of like a budget Mylar blanket, especially useful if you're layering up inside a freezing apartment. You can also use cling wrap to seal containers. If your jug's lid cracks or you've got leftovers that need to stay uncontaminated, a few tight layers of plastic wrap does the job. It's also a handy pest deterrent. Cover exposed food or openings and bugs are out of luck. Now, is it a survival essential? Not quite. You won't die without it, but when things break, leak, or bleed, cling wrap steps in. It's the kind of small support-level item that earns its weight by solving small problems before they become big ones. And in an apartment survival situation, that's exactly the kind of edge you want. Number 10, PVC pipe and adapters. PVC pipe doesn't sound exciting. It's not tactical. It's not flashy, but it's one of the most quietly powerful pieces of gear you can have tucked away, especially if you know how to improvise. This stuff is lightweight, durable, modular, and endlessly useful for bug-in scenarios that require fast, makeshift problem solving. At its core, PVC gives you structural flexibility. You can build frames, racks, shelters, or supports with nothing but a handsaw and some connectors. Create a drying rack for laundry. Build a makeshift indoor tent frame to insulate one room better. Rig up a canopy inside your apartment for concentrated heat retention. If you've got a small kid or a pet, you can even use it to block off dangerous areas, like open windows or exposed electrical boxes, with zero tools. But the real magic happens with plumbing improvisation. PVC pipes can help you rig rain catch systems on balconies, redirect gray water from sinks or tubs, or build a basic gravity-fed water dispenser. If you're filtering rainwater or snowmelt, a vertical PVC rig can hold filters in place securely while taking up minimal floor space. Add in a ball valve, and you've got a homemade faucet for controlled water access. It also shines in bartering. Got extra PVC and connectors? Someone else might desperately need to repair a pipe, build a stand, or patch their own water rig. It's the kind of material people only think about once something breaks, and by then, it's too late. Number 9. Roof Sealant Flex Tape. It doesn't sound like much, just a bucket of tar or a roll of sticky black tape, but when the rain starts coming in sideways and your ceiling starts dripping, roof sealant or flex tape turns from a novelty item into your last line of defense against the elements. You don't truly appreciate waterproofing until you don't have it, and when the grid's down, there's no calling maintenance, no roofer hotline, and definitely no "we'll send someone out tomorrow." A leaking roof isn't just an inconvenience in a blackout, it's the gateway to mold, mildew, electrical hazards, gear loss, and eventual unlivability. If water gets into your apartment or survival space through a window frame, ceiling, or even a wall seam, your stockpile can get soaked, electronics can short, bedding can rot, and your morale will sink faster than your mattress. That's why having some form of emergency roof sealant is such a high-leverage move. Flex tape, blackjack roof cement, or brush-on rubber sealant can patch up cracked windows, seal joints, stop drips, and even shore up a damaged tarp or leaking container. You can use it on exterior doors, balcony leaks, vent gaps, anywhere water finds its way in. It's not pretty, but it buys you time. And in a long-term disaster, time is survival. Now, to be clear, if you're bugging in during a mild, dry blackout that lasts 48 hours, you're probably not going to reach for your bucket of roof tar. But disasters rarely follow a clean script. Add a windstorm, a flood, or a broken pipe upstairs, and suddenly your ceiling's raining and you've got 200 cans of beans floating on your kitchen floor. Number 8. Silica Gel Packets. They're tiny. They're silent. They look like trash. And most people throw them out without a second thought. But silica gel packets, those little do-not-eat bags that come with everything from shoes to electronics, might be the single most underrated piece of gear protection you'll ever stash. When you're surviving in a sealed-off apartment during a prolonged blackout, moisture becomes one of your biggest enemies. Not just for comfort, but for functionality. Your flashlights, radios, power banks, batteries, multi-tools, and firearms, everything metal, electronic, or sealed, is vulnerable to humidity. And humidity doesn't care if you're inside. Once the HVAC goes down, indoor condensation builds, walls sweat, closets get musty, and your gear starts dying slowly from the inside out. That's where silica gel steps in. These packets absorb moisture silently, without needing batteries, without releasing chemicals, and without taking up space. Put them in your ammo boxes, and they prevent corrosion. Drop them in with your backup electronics, and they guard against short circuits and oxidation. Even your meds, seeds, and food packs stay safer in a low-moisture environment, especially if you're storing long-term in plastic bins. It's not a sexy prep. No one brags about their silica collection, but in the middle of a blackout, when your flashlight flickers out because the contact's rusted, or your radio refuses to turn on, or your ammo jams from corrosion, that's when you realize these little bags could have saved you a world of trouble. They last a long time, they can be recharged in the oven, and they're practically free. You can collect them every time you buy electronics or shoes, or you can buy them in bulk for pennies and tuck them into every drawer, cache, and supply box you care about. Number 7. Sewing All Kit. When people imagine survival, they picture fire starting, water filtering, maybe even defending the homestead. But you know what really becomes a crisis in week 2 of a blackout? A broken strap, a blown-out boot, a ripped backpack, a torn jacket, or a fraying tarp seam that turns your entire shelter into a wind tunnel. That's where the sewing awl comes in, a rugged little tool that's more important than most people realize. Unlike regular sewing needles, a sewing awl is designed to punch through thick materials: canvas, denim, nylon webbing, even leather. It's the difference between fumbling with a thread and needle for an hour versus lacing up a busted rucksack in under 5 minutes. And when your pack is your lifeline or your coat is the only thing keeping you warm, time matters. This isn't your grandmother's cross-stitch kit. The sewing awl works more like a handheld leather stitcher, using a heavy-duty needle and waxed thread to create lock stitches that hold underweight, weather, and where. It's the same gear saddle makers and field mechanics use. In a survival setting, that means you're not just fixing pants, you're reinforcing straps, reattaching MOLLE webbing, stitching tarps, repairing tents, patching gloves, even jury-rigging broken gear loops or belts. When replacements are off the table, repair becomes a survival skill. The longer you can extend the life of your gear, the less vulnerable you are. You're not wasting resources scavenging for another bag or hunting down a backup tarp. You're fixing it fast and getting back to what matters. Number 6, Coban wrap and liquid stitches. There's a moment in every real disaster scenario when it happens. Someone gets cut, falls, slices a hand, or worse, and suddenly your bug-in plan shifts from batteries and blackout curtains to blood control and infection prevention. That's where Coban wrap and liquid stitches, also known as Dermabond, stop being first aid extras and start being life-saving essentials. In a world where emergency rooms are overrun, ambulances aren't answering, and hospitals are days away on foot, wound management isn't optional. It's survival. Coban wrap is self-adhesive. No pins, no tape, no slipping. It clings only to itself, making it ideal for wrapping joints, immobilizing sprains, and securing dressings on wounds without cutting off circulation. It's stretchy, reusable, lightweight, and doesn't stick to skin, hair, or open injuries. Perfect for fast, field-ready response when someone's bleeding and time matters. Now pair that with liquid stitches. This isn't glue you grab from the toolbox. It's medical grade, fast-acting, and designed to seal lacerations where sutures would normally go. If someone gets a clean but deep cut and there's no doctor in sight, liquid stitches can close that wound, reduce infection risk, and keep it protected long enough for the body to start healing. In a grid-down world, that's huge. Even in mild disasters, hygiene breaks down fast. A small wound becomes a festering infection in a matter of days. But with Coban wrap and liquid stitches, you can stabilize, sanitize, and seal. That means fewer trips out, fewer risks of secondary infection, and fewer emergencies you're not equipped to handle. Number 5, printed survival guides and manuals. When the grid collapses, so does your access to everything digital. No Google, no YouTube tutorials, no PDFs unless you already downloaded them. And even then, good luck getting to them if your phone battery dies. That's why printed survival guides aren't just old school, they're off-grid gold. In a blackout that stretches days or even weeks, these books become your brain trust, your mentor, your how-to for every life-saving task. Think about it. You're injured and need to splint a leg. You're out of clean water and need to purify river runoff. You're trying to figure out whether that plant growing outside your window is edible or a one-way trip to the ER. In each case, a simple printed page, no signal, no screen glare, no drained battery, might be your only lifeline. The key is curation. This isn't about hoarding every prepper book on Amazon. You want actionable, field-tested guides. Medical manuals like Where There Is No Doctor or the SAS Survival Handbook. DIY repair books. Manuals on wild edibles, firearm maintenance, water filtration, urban survival strategies. Even cookbooks that don't rely on refrigeration, ovens, or modern appliances. Knowledge that works without a plug. Organize them. Label them. Store them in waterproof sleeves or a dry tote near your bug-in area. Don't assume you'll remember everything from that survival course you watched on Netflix 6 months ago. Under stress, your memory fails, but a book doesn't. Number 4, Diatomacious Earth. If you're bugging in long term, the real invasion won't come from outside your apartment. It'll come from inside your pantry. Ants, roaches, weevils, mites. Pests don't take time off during a blackout. In fact, they thrive in silence, darkness, and a lack of sanitation. That's where Diatomacious Earth comes in. One of the most underrated, underutilized, and overperforming preps out there. This white, chalky powder looks harmless, almost like baking soda. But under a microscope, it's all razor-sharp edges, slicing into insects' exoskeletons and dehydrating them to death. It's not a poison, so it won't harm your pets or your food stores. But it works, and it works silently, passively, and indefinitely. Sprinkle it around food buckets, inside cabinets, behind appliances, or under shelves. Bugs walk through it and they die. It's that simple. No odor, no traps, no bait, just a dry barrier of protection that doesn't rely on electricity or expiration dates. But it gets better. You can also mix Diatomacious Earth into stored grains or dry goods to protect against weevils and pantry moths. It keeps your food intact, insect-free, and safer to eat long after the sell-by date fades. Some survivalists even take food-grade Diatomacious Earth internally in small amounts, claiming it helps bind to toxins, parasites, or heavy metals. Is it a miracle detox? Maybe not. But in desperate situations, it's another line of defense for gut health and basic purification. And unlike sprays or traps, it stores forever. Just keep it dry. One $10 bag can last years and cover a 2-bedroom apartment's worth of food protection and pest control. Number 3, bag balm. If you've ever spent days in the cold, soaked, working with your hands, or walking in boots that don't quite fit, then you already know what happens next. Cracked skin, bleeding knuckles, painful heels, raw elbows, and chafing in places we won't name. And once your skin breaks, you're not just uncomfortable, you're compromised. Welcome to the underrated genius of bag balm. Originally made for dairy cows, yes, really, bag balm is a lanolin-rich antiseptic salve that's become a quiet legend in the survival world. It heals dry, cracked skin faster than almost anything else. It locks in moisture, blocks windburn, soothes razor burn, and even helps with minor cuts and abrasions. In a grid-down scenario, it's not cosmetic, it's tactical. Because here's the truth. In a prolonged blackout, your skin becomes a battlefield. You're washing less, moving more, sweating in gear you can't change often, and exposed to dirt, grime, and bacteria. Small cuts and blisters become infected. Chafing turns into ulcers. But a dab of bag balm can stop that in its tracks. But it doesn't stop at skin. Bag balm works as a makeshift lubricant for zippers, squeaky hinges, stuck compartments, or weather-dried seals. It can waterproof boots, soften leather, and even extend the life of gloves, straps, and tools. Number 2, manual hand drill and bits. When the lights go out, your power tools become glorified paperweights. Your drill, your driver, your favorite rechargeable gizmo, all useless once the batteries die and there's no outlet to revive them. That's where the humble manual hand drill comes in. Quiet, rugged. No cord, no battery, no heat. Just you, your grip, and real-world results. And don't underestimate what that means. In an extended blackout, you'll eventually have to fix something. Patch a broken shelf, mount blackout curtains, reinforce your door frame, maybe even build a barrier between you and a hostile hallway. You're going to need torque, you're going to need holes, and you're going to need to do it without drawing attention. That's what makes this tool invaluable. Unlike hammering or sawing, a hand drill doesn't echo through walls. You can work silently, deliberately, even in the dead of night. And paired with a good set of bits, metal, wood, even masonry, you can drill into nearly anything. Concrete, drywall, door frames, or furniture. Want to mount a peephole camera, create a vent, bolt a board across a door? The manual drill is your answer. It also stores easy, takes up minimal space, no cords, no charging stations, no complicated maintenance. Just keep it dry and oiled and it'll outlast most of your modern gear. Number 1, Silco Key. This is the one tool no prepper talks about but every urban survivor needs. The Silco Key. 4 simple heads on a tiny T-wrench that opens the lock spigots on the sides of commercial buildings, schools, stadiums, malls, or warehouses. In other words, this is the skeleton key to water in any city blackout. Why is that such a big deal? Because when the water stops flowing in your tap, you'll panic. Everyone will. Bottled water will vanish in hours. Store shelves will be stripped. And unless you have a bathtub full of reserves or barrels hidden under your bed, you'll need a new source fast. Enter the Silco Key. Those outdoor water faucets you've seen on public buildings, they're designed for janitorial crews or maintenance workers, and they require this exact tool to turn on. They're everywhere, but without this simple key, they're as good as sealed. It weighs nothing, fits in your pocket, costs less than a fast food meal. Yet it grants you access to thousands of gallons of untapped urban water, water that's otherwise completely inaccessible during a crisis. Even better, this isn't a one-time use tool. It works indefinitely. It has no moving parts, and it could turn a desperate scramble for hydration into a calm, calculated supply run. So if you're prepping for urban survival and you don't have a Silco Key, you're missing the single most effective water solution in a crisis. Period. So before you blow another paycheck on freeze-dried chili, ask yourself this. Do you have the tools that matter when the grid goes silent? If this video helped open your eyes to smarter prepping, hit that like button, Subscribe for more survival breakdowns and let me know in the comments. What's your number one most overlooked survival item? Because in a real blackout, it's the gear you forgot that might cost you the most.